Hello and welcome to the 200th episode of the Foundry Roundtable, podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Drogan1701, and with me are my faithful co-hosts, Greendragoon, Markhawkman, and DuncanIdaho.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
And we have a special guest with us today, but we'll get to that in just a second.
Really?
Yes, I'm making him wait for a second. Because we have an even bigger announcement that we're going to talk to people about here. And I'll just get right to it. This is the last regular episode of the Foundry Roundtable. But we're not going away. What we want to do is basically, we're Duncan called it the Conan O'Brien approach, where we're basically going to, change format. We're going to do things differently. We want to focus on, maybe like smaller videos, do things like more mission playthroughs, more, small Foundry builds. We want to revamp our tutorials. So basically, we're doing away with the sort of regular show format, and we're going to branch out and do different things. And the 200th episode seemed like a great time to make that change. And 6 years and 200 episodes is it's plenty of time to be doing just about anything in the same way. So, it's definitely time for a change.
It's been a long road getting from there to here. It's been a long time, but my time is finally here. I can feel a taint in the wind. Wait, no, these aren't the right lyrics.
One star.
Oh.
Did you just say I can feel a taint in the wind?
I can feel
That's what I heard.
Maybe
I'm just clarifying. I'm sorry.
Accurate.
a change.
No, it's
like,
good time because we need to introduce our guests. Okay, so way back when, at the very beginning of this show, 6 years ago, we on our first episode, we had the current, the former community manager join us on the show, which is a very generous thing and a great thing for him to do. And so for the 200th episode, what better symmetry than to have the current community manager on our show? So please welcome Mike, aka Ambassador Kael.
Hello, everyone! Hooray! It's me. I'm here. Yay!
And the only one
for
of
having
us
me.
actually on video.
I'm really excited. I didn't realize this was going to be the last episode you were inviting me to. So I feel like I was asked to speak at a funeral, but I'm here.
If we do, it's not that we're like completely quitting this. So we might have you on later.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys! I'm watching the stream video. You guys put me up on video while you were introducing me. I'm just staring at the camera like a fool for like 5 minutes.
That's how we do things here. We're off the cuff. We're live. There's no script.
No.
This is how we do.
Live, pal.
Yeah.
We often confuse each other.
Yeah, this is how we get into like episode long sort of just dives into madness, where we're thinking up the secret origin or the secret backstory of what happened to Memory Alpha. And I think we got into Cthulhu madness. We crossbred a Medusan with a Tribble, which induces just madness trips. And
my absolute favorite was when we did a brainstorming session for a sequel to somebody's Foundry mission, and we ended up making Hakeev into a tragic hero.
Oh, that was H2O Rat's mission.
Yes, it was excellent.
That was Spotlight for a while.
Oh man, I first of all, Duncan, I'm inside your tardigrade, and I'm not sorry.
Oh no.
Still got X-ray in it also.
I don't know if it'll ever happen. Because it's something that I've been working on in my free time for forever, and I don't have any free time. But I have an evil plan for Memory Alpha, and that's really all I can say about it right now. But I do have an evil plan for it.
I think we're the only thing that can possibly happen to it is an evil plan at this point.
Yeah.
Well, the funniest thing about it is I went there once to take screenshots, and using magic dev cheat commands, I can still go there, but they when they shut it off, put a what do you call it? A power over the whole, or a volume over the whole map that auto teleports you out. And so I had to figure out how to get around that, because every time I warped in, my character would be like, this looks nice, warp out.
Can we give you a trick?
Yes, you can.
There are still like Foundry doors in Memory Alpha. If you preview a mission in the Foundry editor that starts in Memory Alpha, it'll beam you in. It'll try to beam you out, but since map transitions are broken, it'll fail and it'll stay there.
That's how it used to work. One of the reasons season updates changed that, so now that instead of having it fail and then just give up, it keeps trying. Over.
Too bad.
Last time I tried that, I literally had to kill the game with Alt F4 to make it stop.
Ouch.
The madness is spreading.
See, this is why we don't go to Memory Alpha.
Yes.
Let's not go to Memory Alpha. It is
the new version of the
It's
map
only a
looks very nice, though. I really wish we could actually use that for something.
Oh, yeah. I see what you mean.
Got some fancy bits.
Yeah.
Because whoever redesigned it put a lot of chrome on the interior, so when you walk around, you like see your reflection and things. Really cool.
I wonder if that's just a lighting change, because I don't think anybody ever actively redesigned. Like, do you mean it was redesigned after it was turned off?
No. It got turned off because they were working on redesigning it, but weren't able to finish it before a season update, and then they just kind of like quit. And
yeah, that happens. That's how the Deep Space Nine rebuild got started. I think 3 years before it was finished.
It was worth the wait, though.
Oh God, yes, that map is so good, so good. And getting to walk the celebrities around it was even better.
Oh, man.
I heard about that.
Yeah,
that sounded awesome.
The one you guys didn't see, the video that's been up on our YouTube channel for a while, is cool because it's Chase and JG and God, my brain just spit his name out of his head. But
Aaron Eisenberg?
at Destination Star Trek, we got to show it to Ira. So he actually came over and watched the whole walkthrough and kind of gave it his stamp of approval, which was really cool. We didn't get very good video of it, unfortunately, but it was awesome. Max Jordan Chick, thank you, Hippie John 71.
That's right.
Yeah. Was that the Swole moment?
Swole moment?
Oh, man. I think it was... No, it wasn't... Oh, God. Who was it? Someone made the comment like the Frankie was swollen up, or it wasn't swollen enough.
Oh, that was Aaron at STL.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, he wanted us to take his character and make him more buff. To which I looked at Aaron and said, "Well."
Hey, if you're going to build a digital version of me, you might as well make him, sort of ideal. Buff him up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, let's. While we've got you here, let's talk a little Foundry. It's maybe not in the most ideal of places right now, but it is up, which is good.
Yep. Well, and that's actually, it was a decision we made. Yeah, you may remember when we brought it up last, there were, the 3 new bugs that you and I talked about before we went on air. And Justin, one of our producers, was like, well, should we turn it back off? And Jared and I were kind of like, no, just... It works now. It's not ideal, but at least they can use it.
Yeah.
Well, let us finish the challenge and get back to some regular business. I mean, I think the most important thing then was to get back in the player's hands, because that keeps it relevant in the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're happy to be able to play missions and at least do a few things.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, there are certain parts of it that actually do work properly still, which is mainly the dialogue editing tools.
Yeah, yep. I actually used that to a pretty big effect recently. I did a massive rewrite on a few of my missions. And it actually changed the season arc in my Starfleet Security series. So that was actually fun getting right back into that. And it actually gave me a good opportunity, because I wouldn't have done that if the Foundry editor was back up proper. So it was actually like, I can actually use this time for something.
I actually built a whole Foundry mission this week. I started on Monday because I was like, oh, cool. How awesome would it be to do our last episode and release a Foundry mission that day? And then, unfortunately, I could not publish it.
Oh,
but it's done. soon.
Talk about that a little bit, because I mentioned this before we went on the air, but I want to make sure people understand. Like, we've talked on my stream a little bit about how our QA team is now like 6 people. The team of programmers that we have working on Star Trek Online is also quite limited. And those are the people who have to fix things when the Foundry breaks. And for some reason, the Foundry breaks every time we do anything. I sneeze wrong, and I deleted 3 files that make the Foundry work.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before we went on the air, the people who built the Foundry have long since moved on to other things. So anytime a programmer does have to fix something, it's a matter of a lot of guesswork and digging into the code and trying to figure out what's going on. And so it's one of those things where, people start on fixing something, and then the arena won't work. And they have to abandon what they're doing to go fix that, because that's affecting a wider amount of players.
I guess one example would be having an electrician come to your house to figure out why a light switch isn't working, and then they spend 2 hours tracing wires through the walls.
Yes, exactly. It's a lot like that.
Wires that were put in 1901.
Yes. Exactly like my house that I bought a couple years ago. Cloth-wrapped wires in the walls, everybody. Cloth-wrapped wires.
Ooh. Vintage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's retro, yeah.
Is that I've learned that no 2 programmers program things the same way.
No, it's a secret language that only they speak, and none of them can speak it to each other.
That does not sound like a good system.
They are mystical, magical men and women, and we do not wish to anger them.
The oldest saying in computer programming is there's more than one way to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, but we definitely appreciate everything you guys are doing to continue to sort of work on these bugs and, get the Foundry back online at whatever pace is actually possible for the production team.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we really appreciate, and Zero would tell you this, even though she's not on the project anymore, and I'll tell you this for sure, is you guys are, I don't want to say the nicest part of the community, but my God, if you're not, I mean, like, the Foundry authors are always like, when there's something broken, you guys are like respectful and like offer information and ask questions and don't just be like, give me a refund or die.
I hate those people.
Interacting with the Foundry authors is one of my favorite things, and the stuff you guys make is just so incredible. Like, the stories you make are so cool. It's a shame that we just don't have the time and resources to put into the program that we wish we did.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think once we get back onto sort of phenomenal footing, I think we can, I think as Star Trek Online moves into the age of discovery and brings on stuff from Picard, I think the Foundry could be a really good place to really integrate these elements in a much deeper way than a lot of the story missions can, just to bring everything together and continue to tell stories in the Star Trek universe. And I think going forward, I think there's a lot of really good stuff still left to do with the Foundry. And really make it a increasingly important part of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Foundry is one of my favorite parts of the game. So,
I kind of,
we like to expand on what's going on in the game itself. I mean, when we had the Iconian War, we did this anthology series where anybody could make an Iconian War mission. We ended up with like 30 some odd missions. It was great.
Yeah. Actually, I recently expanded on that myself, because that was a little bit before my time when you guys were making that one. And I tagged on one of my missions because it involved the Iconians into the Iconian War anthology as sort of a follow-up.
Yeah.
Well, it was one of those that anybody could make at any time. You could still make one if you wanted right now.
Yeah. You could tie. You
can't publish it, but
you could tie into anything. We could make a mirror universe thing. Actually, one of you guys could make the Mirror Tilly versus Mirror Lita war that I keep joking about on my other.
I think someone's actually already working towards that.
Good. That makes me happy.
Yeah, Paul Sutherland. He's been working on he really wants to start off he's been bugging me all the time. It's great. About Discovery Challenge, when we're going to do it. What are we going to do the Discovery Challenge? Because he was already working on a Discovery-themed Mirror Universe series. Yeah. And I think it's going to be an epic battle of power. I don't know exactly who's going to be involved because he is very conscious of the EULA, but one of those types of battles for power.
He's already written a series called Mirror Wars, which is about a civil war in the Terran Empire where you play the missions as if you're, like a regular old random Terran Empire captain.
Yeah, he's got 4 seasons of that, so you can basically have an entire Mirror Universe experience just through his missions, in addition to other Mirror Universe missions he's made.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love, whenever people are like, why don't you have more Mirror content or more Borg content? I'm like, well, there is, these thousands upon thousands of missions that your fellow captains have made that you could probably go experience right now.
Some of them might even be good.
Yeah. I mean, we've got the spotlit missions for a reason.
There are some that are horrible. I will admit that. I played and made a YouTube video about one of them earlier this week, and wow, that one was painful. Seriously.
I can still have a lot of fun with those just because you are seeing something that's just sort of, it's like the Mystery Science Theater approach, where you're seeing something that no one else would make. And sometimes you can get to some really fun experiences just through how bizarre some of those situations can be.
Yeah. This one wasn't really all that fun, though, because it starts off the mission by spawning you in a small blank room and then spawn camping you with multiple enemy mobs.
Oh, fun. Fun. That's good game design right there. That's how you want to design a friendly level for your
It definitely tells you something about the just huge variety of approaches that people take to the Foundry, because I would never think of doing that to you.
Yeah.
But somebody did.
The first wave, I am in one corner of the room killing a mob by myself, and my bridge officers are in the other corners of the room killing things. And then when we killed those groups, suddenly another group spawns in on top of us, and we just get overwhelmed with sheer numbers.
Well, you know what you need for that? You need a dinosaur pet.
Yes. At least you'll be happy as you're being murdered. It's like, dinosaur!
Yay! Yeah, it's one of those. I almost think we should implement the Mario Maker model, where like if you can't beat your mission, you can't upload it.
Oh boy. There's actually a lot of UGC things I've seen on the internet that are exactly like that, though.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing to do, so you don't end up with an endless, like an open pit as the start of the mission or something like that. Although I will say, since I've gone in to say, how difficult it is to fix the Foundry, adding new features to the Foundry is probably not something we'll be doing anytime soon. As much as I long for them.
One new feature that people have talked about and is probably never going to happen, but something that a lot of people would like to happen, is the ability to make PvP maps in the Foundry.
Oh God. Oh my.
Man.
I can't tell you how many things that we have talked about that will never happen in the 6-year history of this show.
Man. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, congratulations, by the way, if I didn't say it on 200 episodes. That's amazing. I did a podcast that didn't make it anywhere near that far, so that's awesome. Well done.
Yay!
Well, I can't say when I set out to organize this back in the day that I expected it. We'd still be doing it 6 years later, but here we are.
There you are. So tell me a little bit about your schedule for the stuff you're planning to do. I know you're not doing the 2-hour live stream podcast anymore, but what are you guys planning on doing with the channel?
Well, we haven't decided on a particular schedule at the moment, but maybe like a couple of things a month, to slow down our pace a little bit. One thing that we want to do that I mentioned earlier is kind of revamp our tutorial series. We did it as sort of basically a live version of the show with all 4 of us doing this, and we thought maybe that wasn't necessarily the best approach.
We meander a lot.
Maybe do it with 1 or 2 of us per video,
and be able to break that up into specific topics, so that would be easy to link off to as sort of like this big guide that we can put on the forums to say, hey, if you want to get into the Foundry, Here's
what you do. Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely a daunting learning curve. I wish we did more to teach you about how it works in the game, but I'm glad you guys have stuff to fill the holes there.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes through experimentation. I know I got into the Foundry mostly through just picking it up myself. Yeah. Although I did come in from a geospatial statistics background, so working with a 2D map was kind of up my street. But I learned a lot just from like watching Greendragoon and Drogon build stuff in the Foundry on the Foundry Roundtable. So some of the very special tricks I learned that way. So being able to like separate those out into topics would be great. Because if I wanted to show someone the same things that I learned, I can't really do that because I'd have to like go back to those episodes, get to like, okay, so this time window right here, that's kind of it, but not quite it. So yeah, I think it'll be good to sort of focus on sort of doing that resource building, both in text and in video format.
Yeah. And we do want to do more Foundry challenges as well.
Yes.
Personally, my background before going to the Stowe Foundry was, like I said, I've done UGC and a variety of other computer games and, modding and stuff like that. So, the tinkering with things and figuring out how to make things work is something that, I had experience with it.
And I've done things like, build maps in StarCraft and stuff like that. So,
That's exactly
having that
one of the things I'd done.
Yeah.
I built a whole campaign in Star Trek back in the day. Did all the voices acting myself.
I never went quite that far, but
yeah, it was a bit much. And it was recorded on on like my built-in computer microphone back in the 90s, so I'm sure it was excellent sound quality.
That might play into the authenticity though. It's like just the the standard radio traffic Yeah, so you can work with it in the fiction. It's fine.
Just look at it as a period piece. It's very 90s.
90s.
Trekker Chick wants to know if anyone else has the urge to tickle my beard for some reason.
Second that.
Not the first time I've been hit on stream, and I hope it won't be the last. I just opened myself.
So how's Mrs. Kael?
Mrs. Kael is doing great, and the Kael the Younger is also doing great. She said "mama" for the first time yesterday. Which is
nice.
Cool.
How old is she now?
She is 15 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember when you went on maternity leave, and it's like, oh wow.
Yeah. I'm out. And something breaks every time I go on vacation or leave. Like the time that I went on vacation and nobody told me not to announce personal endeavors.
At least you're finally proven true.
Didn't you say on the stream Wednesday that was something that had been planned to be announced on the time you announced it?
Yep.
And the plan changed. But you didn't get the notice.
Yeah, it was a feature for Victory's Life. There was a last-minute decision that it wasn't quite ready yet, and they were going to have to do it for one of the Discovery updates instead. And then I went on vacation as that decision was being made. Nobody told me, and then people got into work on Monday and said, "Hey, we just announced this feature. Can someone email Mike?" And of course, wherever I was, I couldn't access a computer, so I had to email Julia to be like, "Hey, can you log on to this and make this go away with extreme prejudice? You can perform it."
Yeah. And then, of course, just before Christmas break is when we had the Foundry come back, but with the bugs. So
the blah.
With just the various bugs. So yeah, vacation time just is a time of reckoning. Just to see it coming up, it's like I know something is going to happen there.
Something you can plan as much as you like, and nothing will ever change.
If it makes you feel any better, it happens everywhere. I mean, whenever our IT guy at my business goes away, that's when things break.
Everything explodes. Yep. Yeah. All right. So what else are we doing on the show, boys?
What else are we doing?
So I was just going to say, like, since we have Kael on, we do have, the idea, like, we want to run more challenges, but what would be a good one?
I heard Discovery Challenge floated, and I liked that.
Discovery Challenge, but...
sometimes we like to narrow it just a little.
Sure.
The question is, how would you do it?
we are doing Mirror of Discovery right now. You could do a mission where you meet your mirror self. It's hard to do costume-wise, but you could put somebody in like full armor or something like that. You know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. The EV suits would be good for that.
Yeah.
Or basically horribly scarred you.
Yeah.
Just like completely undistinguishable alien head. It's like, I've been to places.
One person in the past who, when they were doing a mission where you involved your mirror universe counterpart, they did it like in the original In a Mirror mirror episode, where Kirk never actually met his mirror counterpart. Because he switched
your
places
mirror counterpart is running around blowing things up, and you have to deal with your thing on the other side. That makes sense.
Yeah, you're like in the mirror universe, trying to kind of sort of live out the life of your mirror counterpart, and that's what he did for this mission.
Well, you know, I noticed something about season 1 of Discovery. Only a tiny little bit of spoiler for you, Duncan. None of them actually meet their mirror selves. There's none of that. There's none of that doubling.
Well, I've been kind of spoiled to that based on what I know is coming up for the next episode in Star Trek Online. I have been paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Are bad. but in my defense, you did have like 6 months to watch that.
I also read all the
you did it to yourself
too, so yeah. I am fully up to date on the season as it stands now. I just haven't seen the actual episodes yet.
I put out that tweet yesterday that was like, you know, what are you most excited to see in Discovery season 2? And somebody was like, I'm going to be watching it, but I'm only going to be watching it for things that might appear in game. And I was like, that's flattering. That's all right. I'll take it.
Way to go.
I mean, like, how many people in a Discovery Season 1 were like, ooh, I want Empress Georgiou's sword. Like, okay, well,
everyone.
Live stream.
Me, hi, I wanted it, and I got it.
I am getting that immediately next Wednesday.
Oh my god, so much.
That is actually the reason why I have this particular character, is because when I was originally playing the Romulan Republic storyline, the number one thing that annoyed me is that I couldn't have Diala pick up the shard sword made by Sherry back in the old days.
There's an actually we're incorrect. Mino Dan has pointed out in chat that there was one character, although it is a massive spoiler to say who did meet their mirror universe counterpart.
Really?
Yep.
I'm trying to think who.
Yep.
Yep.
But if I think of it, we won't say.
Yes,
but. Yeah, see, because
we'll
that
leave
was
that
actually
Duncan, take your headset off for a second.
Well, I already know that part of the spoiler, because I thought that was funny, because I actually did the exact same thing in my Starfleet Security series. I had the same twist.
I remember now.
Yeah.
Well, so I can tell you that when I did a Mirror Universe Foundry mission, basically I had it where your counterpart was in the next room, and you knocked them unconscious so you could take their place, so you never actually had to see them.
But yeah, that's just a mirror universe. I mean, we've got a lot for that, and someone's already demonstrated the fact you can actually do it right now in the Foundry, so without any new assets. So yeah, so that'd be a great angle for a challenge. Instead of I was worrying a little bit well, if we did Klingons, but we don't if the customization option.
Klingons, so.
Yeah, because that's probably going to be once that's added to the Taylor, that's probably going to get automatically folded in the Foundry, at least for all the cranial options, because that stuff usually ports over.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but naturally we don't have an ETA on that.
Yeah, and that's probably going to be a little while based on what Kael said on the stream. So I think it's mirror universe angle should be pretty darn fun for that.
Pretty easy to do. Yeah.
Hey.
So that takes care of that part.
Wait, we solved it. Okay.
Good. 1, 2, 3, done. All right.
Sutherland. Yeah. Hey, there's your answer there. Soon. Yeah. So
we probably would to see the Foundry map building in a little bit better state before we launch the next challenge.
Customization. Yeah, that's basically once we get the major current bugs out of the way, or at least sufficiently out of the way that we can really start building on projects. So
otherwise I'd be let's start it Thursday.
Or right now, get building, guys. You have until Thursday.
Hey, I just built a mission in a week. It's nothing like, crazy complicated, but it's doable.
Hey, I built an entire mission in one stream, so
It took us 2 to do that because basically, Dragoon is very, very slow.
Yeah.
I am meticulous.
That's one way of looking at it.
I just like that though, because the longer it takes Green Dragoon to finish minus part 3, people don't bug me about finishing at part 2.
Green Dragoon, hello, it is me, the community manager of Star Trek Online. You have 1 month to finish minus part 3. Do it. Do it now.
Might be able to write some dialogue. I've got a few maps I still need to build.
Do it.
Do it.
Just
you have been commanded.
The way the Foundry is now, I want to play it. I liked part 1 and 2 a lot.
Our players are still stranded where you left them. Because that, multiple cliffhangers there.
Yes. I made. Actually, wait, hang on. Oh no, you can't. I can't bring in my bridge crew on this map. I have your alien character as one of my bridge crew. I built her for this character because
Goro.
Yeah.
No, no. That's
talking about Kamala.
Kamala, yeah.
Jigoro's mine.
When I originally planned out this series, I wanted to be able to there's a certain special ending in the final part, and I wanted to be anyone who gets its ending and tells me, I would send them a boff made up like her.
Oh, nice.
Well, that reminds me, one of Diala's bridge officers, I dressed the character to look like Orihime Inoue from the anime Bleach because of the fact that Laughing Trinity used to have a picture of Orihime as her forum avatar.
We love the Stowe character creator because it just has so many options. Clearly, as I'm here, dressed like the Green Arrow.
Yeah, it's really cool. I understand why more games don't have it because man, is it a nightmare pain in the butt. But I wish more games did because it's so great to have that level of customization over your characters.
And we've seen that stretch to its full potential with Ham Sandwich.
Ham Sandwich.
And she has appeared in one Foundry mission so far. I have gotten her in one of them.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And she also appeared on the she's on the walls of Deep Space Nine because Tim is hilarious.
She is?
Oh yeah, if you go into the security office, the people who are
I'm going there now.
Who are on the wall looking for security are the members of the USS Pathfinder and Ham Sandwich.
I saw Pathfinder. I never saw Ham Sandwich.
Yeah,
I'm going there right now. I'm going to Deep Space Nine.
All right, I'll come with.
Hey, Kael, did you hear the story of why Tumor Boy decided to change his name in game to Taco Fangs?
I didn't know.
It's from way back when they added Tacophanies to Champions Online. People were calling Tacophanies stuff like Taco Face and Taco Fangs in Zone Chat in Champions Online. So Tumor Boy somehow came up with a way to build a character that looked like he had a taco for a head.
Oh my god.
There's a YouTube video.
And decided to use the forum handle Taco Fangs ever after.
Hey, Pax Federatica, that is awesome and really sweet that you're doing that. Let me know in chat if it's something that you're doing as a surprise for Zero, because then I won't mention it to her the next time I see her.
I'm pretty sure she knows about it. He's been
tweeting about it for a while.
Okay, showing screenshots and things, and we actually showed the map off on the one of our live streams previously.
All right.
Yeah. I was going to say is that he actually tweeted a picture of the map to them.
And that's been a champion
so they're
effort.
Probably okay.
Yeah, and that's been a great effort because he's been doing that while the Foundry's been in its current state.
Good for him.
Now, here begins the... Okay, so I finally made it to DS9, and here begins the epic... What I always do on Deep Space Nine, which is just run in a circle.
The wrong way.
And it's always the wrong way.
No matter what.
I'm always on the other side of the station. There we go.
Luckily, now it's the only circular station that we have, and we don't have to do that with ESD anymore. So I always did that on ESD.
Well, I mean, with the two main things I usually want to go to when I first get there is Shipyard, the mail or bank, and that Ferengi where you get the commodities trading assignments.
Okay, so I found the Pathfinder crew. But where's Ham Sandwich?
Hold on, I'm on my way.
I found Ham Sandwich.
Pax Federatica, yeah, I can definitely send you the sliders for Ham Sandwich to send her to the wedding. I made them up specifically for this, actually, because Tim asked me for a picture of her, and I didn't know what he wanted, so I got him the sliders and a screenshot. And then I think I put them on Twitter, too, so Duncan probably has them.
I actually recreated the sliders from that live stream.
Oh,
I
wow.
actually watched and just followed along with where you're putting the sliders, and you made it really easy because you maxed them all out or minimized them.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
So, yeah, so it's pretty binary, but yeah, it was yeah. I mean, once that was when that live stream was up, that was possible. I've also incorporated that as a file I can actually just send to people if they want to load it up in the main game for a character or bridge officer.
Yeah, I mean, because at various points, various Foundry authors have gone and looked. It's like, hey, I want to use this NPC. Oh, wait, I don't have that. I'll just use a picture of the NPC and then tinker and eventually make it work. I mentioned that I made a copy of the NPC Erez from the Discovery tutorial that you don't get as a bridge officer.
Oh, yeah.
I actually have that one as a bridge officer. I've also personally done clones of Loris and the Ocampa, the Nia, that Admiral Quinn has as his personal assistant.
Somebody had a good Admiral Quinn going around.
Oh, wow. Yes. Someone gave me that. I don't remember who the original creator was.
I know I've created a version of him.
Oh, Quinn?
Yeah, I used him for...
I've used him too. Once we got the Scant in the Foundry, I needed my own custom Admiral Quinn. That was my last mission that I made. I also put him in the Zambian Snuggie too. That was a pretty fun one.
Yeah.
Hey, that's nothing. I took my Hollow Geordie bridge officer and put him in the Scant.
Nice.
But he's not your commanding officer.
But it's just funnier because it's Geordie.
Which instance are you in on DS9?
Oh, I actually moved back out because Green Dragoon didn't follow us.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Was I supposed to?
Green Dragoon is...
I flew all the way over here for nothing.
No, let's just start the party. Okay, so we'll start the party for anyone tuning in. And the game... dang it. The game just crashed on me. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I will be back on in a second, but the party will continue over in the security office. There we go. Great place for a party.
All right, we're taking a road trip.
I'm in number 5. No, wait. I don't know which one I'm in. Number 4, apparently.
So it's,
begin the batch.
Pull up in your starship, hop in,
then.
we'll go to DS9.
Oh, there she is. That's right. Ham Sandwich gets her own panel.
Yeah, that's why I found her before. But yeah, it's pretty darn neat. But to kind of get back to some of the Foundry discussion, any favorite moments from Foundry missions so far? Like things that just absolutely just top of, like when you think of the Foundry, top of the list, this is what you think of as the sort of the top moments.
So it's all going to be kind of obvious stuff because my favorite missions are the ones that I've spotlit. So everybody's going to see them before. I think in terms of dramatic moments, I think in part 1 of the mission that we were just talking about, the name just slipped out of my mind, that Kamala comes from. Midas. Part 1 of I think it's part 1 of Midas, where you're exploring the crashed starship and like just kind of seeing it on the map. That was really cool. I think the one, oh god, my brain is shorting out on me now on names, but there's a mission in the Spotlight that's a Klingon mission that's a comedy mission. I just spotlit it, like it was the second or third one I did.
Oh, was that the one by XR 337?
Oh yeah, it might be Time Will Tell. Yeah, it's Time Will Tell. Yeah, just everything in that mission was amazing. That might be my favorite that I played. Yeah, and just seeing Invictus and seeing what you could do with the Foundry in terms of making like a social map. Like you can't be social on it, but it's like a nice, really well put together social map, just like one we would make, which I thought was super cool.
Well, I mean that sort of thinking though is actually part of the reason the original Spotlight system came to be, is because back when Brandflakes was the community manager, he would just periodically he'd be like, okay, I have some time on my hands to do something. Hey, I go play a Foundry mission, and then if he liked it, he might spotlight it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's basically kind of our job now.
Yeah, I do. I tried to do Foundry Spotlights every month, and then I know I fell off pretty badly late last year. I'm trying to get back to it now. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we also still have to find missions for you to
That's
recommend.
True.
And
that is very true.
Continue to play those. There's actually one recently I want to take another look at. That's actually a Discovery Era mission. Very Discovery focused. So I do want to give that one another look. So there
are you wearing your Thox cosplay right now?
No, just actually beaming in myself right now.
Okay, so. Someone wearing Thox cosplay just showed up.
Excellent. Let's see. Oh, I gotta check out which instance I'm in. Current map, yes. Okay.
Well done.
I'm bringing a very special costume.
Uh-oh. Now I'm worried.
Of course, I also ran the complete opposite direction again.
Okay, well, I'll wait here with this Borg person who's probably not harmful. I don't know which one of you.
There we go. Haha.
Well, did I mention that the?
What are you wearing?
I am Lieutenant Tardigrade's robot friend.
Isn't that mining helmet?
No, it's the hunter helmet from the
the
hunter outfit, and then I've got the glowing gloves are Dyson sphere. I've got some civilian pants on, this sweater, and a bunch of miscellaneous kit pieces. So, this is a Christmas present to Lieutenant Tardigrade. His commanding officer dressed up as a robot. It's like, I am your robot friend, and he was very excited.
That's awesome. How have you been enjoying the story that I wrote for Lieutenant Tardigrade?
Oh man, I love it so much. Especially today's one where he's walking around the bridge. He has his bridge. He's being very proper about it. And I've been getting Artie and Party as well.
Oh yeah,
I like this escape attempt today.
Party's story actually has a crossover with Skipper's. If anybody's getting both of those, which is about to happen next week.
Yeah, the only one I'm missing right now. No one's been sending me Science Tardigrade, Smarty Tardigrade.
Oh yeah,
I've got Skipper, but I'm missing all the updates on Smarty.
Yeah, I think it was Artie who was the least gotten one. I can't remember whether it was Smarty. I thought was pretty high up there. Lieutenant was the one everybody got, but that was because I think his answers were the most Star Trek-y.
Maybe the stereotypical Star Trek captain.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Can you shed some light on how this whole tardigrade thing came around?
Yeah. Somebody accused it of being a conspiracy theory to collect emails on stream once, and I kind of mentioned this, but basically the idea was we needed to come up with something. We weren't going to be doing, a lot of updates during the holidays other than the big, sales and stuff like that. And we wanted something to keep the community engaged and thinking about STO during the break. And so I came up with this idea. I don't really know how. It just popped into my head one day, like tardigrades. What if you could adopt tardigrades? Hey! Thankfully, everybody from PWE and Cryptic was really on board. We had a meeting where we brainstormed the different tardigrade names. Al tried to shoot down the lieutenant because he didn't get it. I fought him tooth and nail.
And you should just remind him that is the most popular one every time you see him.
Every time.
Every time.
And so that was kind of the purpose that it existed. I mean, the purpose is, to a certain extent, to spam you with emails, but I wanted to come up with something that would be more interesting than like, hey, remember this game? Like, at least there's a story to it, and there's cute art. And
the art is absolutely adorable.
Yeah. Oh my God, Jen knocked it out of the freaking park. When she was showing me her sketches, I was just like, well, this is above and beyond anything that I could have ever wished it would be.
To me, it felt like a natural extension of the fact that people wanted to have tardigrade bridge officers.
Yeah.
It's kind of sort of like the next best thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Although I'm still waiting for a lieutenant tardigrade duty officer. Because that should be much more doable.
I wanted it so bad.
You could make duty officers out of all of these different tardigrades, the RD1 and the...
We got very close to having a tardigrade duty officer at one point, but there was something else that got in the way. We couldn't do it, but
someday.
Someday.
Pushing.
And Al was talking about, ways we could find to technically do finally, bridge officers who were different body types than just humanoid, like Zenkethi or tardigrades or things like that. I don't know if that'll happen. Yeah.
I think he just should have a floating exocom friend, and then that just does all the power stuff, and he just runs around and just continues to be cute.
One thing that's been out for a while is that we actually have had for quite a long time duty officers that represent non-humanoid species.
Yep. Yeah. But I will say
easier to do it there.
But I do have to say that
it's definitely easier to do it there.
Yeah, you just have one 2D piece of art.
Yeah.
Kael, if I may make a suggestion.
One last thing.
Okay.
You may.
I'll let Duncan go.
Okay. I just wanted to say real quick, the day that you announced the adoption agency was probably one of the best of my life. That was such a good day. I mean, I was at work and I was just working, I was teaching a student some stuff with biology, and I had to keep a straight face, and that was incredibly difficult. I was just like, oh my god.
I was so happy we got that off the ground. And that it all worked out the way it did. Just the stars aligned.
And I can only imagine as you're sitting there, pressing the button for this to go live, thinking, what is Duncan's reaction going to be?
That was one of my first thoughts. My other thought was we'd run 2 or 3 months ago before this, or maybe a month before this, the Silly Fertility contest. And the reaction in the community to that kind of cute and sweet contest was a resounding. And so I was really hoping there were people who were going to be like, I was just really hoping there weren't going to be a lot of people who were like, this is dumb. Why tardigrades? Go away. And there have been a lot of people who are saying, what is this leading up to? And anniversary's coming. But
so I was going
not everything leads up to something.
Everything leads to something. Yeah.
Sometimes
things are fun.
I was going to suggest if you ever wanted to do non-humanoid bridge officers lock their powers.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about. Locked it, then they only would have certain animations. And my character's hair is really reflective. I don't know if anyone else can see this, but the lights from Deep Space Nine are perfectly reflected on his head, and I'm not sure what's happening.
Oh yeah. Oh man, yeah. Some of the lighting on the shiny, the minor elements. Yeah, maybe. I mean, my helmet's really shiny too.
Yeah, but this is my hair.
I know.
I really want to know what gel you're using.
It's kind of weird because that's shinier than hair normally is capable of being.
Yeah, I don't know.
Write a bug report.
I'll go knock on Mac's desk. Which, speaking of which, unfortunately, my email just lit up with 2 bug reports that I got to go look into. So it has been absolutely lovely, gentlemen. Congratulations again on 200 episodes. And I can't wait to see what you guys do. I'm so glad the Foundry Roundtable exists.
Well, thank you very much, and we will continue to exist in our new form. And
yay! Hooray for existing!
And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Well, yeah. How can we top that?
Oh, let's just, well, I mean, there's reminiscing.
Chat, reminisce. 6 years of doing this show. And I'm glad that I saw Hippie John in the chat earlier because, big shout out to him, of course, because he was our co-host in the early years. It would not have been the same start without him, for absolutely sure. It was an interesting process, sending out emails and to Foundry authors, because I was looking for people who, I knew from like the forums, but had not necessarily been on podcasts about the Foundry before. I got a couple of no's, and then I got 3 yeses.
So, good enough.
It was an interesting process. So I don't know. What is you guys' favorite thing about doing the show, Ben, over the years?
I think the crazy brainstorming's been my favorite. Like 26th Century. I mean, even though that didn't go where we wanted it to, and we still need that intro.
Yeah, and that's mainly our fault.
Yeah. But I mean, that was just a lot of fun, just going through different ideas, and then also, like I mentioned earlier, our descent into madness when it came to Memory Alpha, I think, is probably my favorite episode.
And I will say that the mission that I built is something that we have talked about on the show many times.
Oh God!
But it is not that.
We'll have to give it a LivePlay then. That'll be our first post regular episode LivePlay.
Well, I may have an extra week to work on it then. In that case, since it will not publish right now.
Yeah, at least a week.
At least a week. Hopefully, only a week. Yeah. Hopefully, I can publish it next week.
Yeah, one of my personal favorite things we talked about on the show was the times when we would like go into the Foundry and like each of us would like tinker with stuff in the Foundry, and then send the group a picture of what we'd made. That episode where we spent half the thing making up weird alien races.
Weird alien races, and I think one of them we did was like, challenge to build the ugliest costume you can think of.
Oh God, yes. That was great. Also, the black and white the black and white build was
cool.
The Captain Proton one.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great proof of concept.
Yeah.
I think that one though is one of those things where part of me is like, I think this is bugged, and that I don't know if it'll get fixed at random.
Well, it was so limited that it was hard to figure out if you could actually build a mission with it.
Like with the black and white grass props. That's just one of those things where I look at this and I'm like, I think this is missing a texture, and the texture might mysteriously reappear at any moment.
Yeah, I think after this long.
Well, I mean, I don't think the texture's
never know.
we've had that long.
We've had things like that happen though, where you get a different texture put on something, or something got resized and it filtered down into the Foundry.
Oh yeah, well the Planet's a good one. That update, which has been good in some respects. Others, I mean, actually no. Others though, it does leave some creative possibilities with what you can do with a giant white featureless sphere.
Yes.
Yeah. So Greendragoon.
So I've actually really enjoyed kind of doing all of the technical stuff. No, not very many of our viewers probably date all the way back to when we originally started, but I mean, it was originally just audio only, and it was Drogan doing all the work. So he did the edits and put it online.
Mm-hmm.
And
we pre-recorded, and then I edited it and put it online. And then I think it was pretty much Dragoon was sort of the one pushing his haste. Why don't we try going live?
Yeah, we did the 2 live streams where we built the mission.
Mm-hmm. Was that the first one we ever did?
Yeah, I don't think we built it. Well, I mean, yeah, we didn't build anything live before then because we were just a roundtable discussion. And so I kind of just mushroomed from there. And so it's like, maybe we can put in graphics and make an intro and add music. And so, yeah. And if anybody knows, I kind of went a little nuts doing the intro for this show.
Which has led me to basically sort of force you to do other ones. My personal favorite is the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. version of the intro that you did for Agents of Yesterday. I still love that. This is brilliant.
Yeah, that was just kind of a challenge. It's like, it's not that complicated. I bet you could recreate this.
We had a question in our chat a second ago. Are there camera filters in the Foundries, such as like for the TOS maps they have the what would you call that? Film grain effect.
Yeah.
There aren't ones like that we can specifically put on it, but you can change lighting with backgrounds and things like that. And I'm wondering, the Constitution bridge and interior that we have in the Foundry, does that trigger the film grain effect? Yeah.
One thing I recently noticed and haven't had a time to check in the Foundry is that the Constitution bridge that you can use for player ship interior was updated at some point to have the shuttle bay that they built for Agents of Yesterday added to the bridge interior. And I'm not sure if that shuttle bay is available in the Foundry that way.
No, I believe we have the old version of the player interior.
Yeah. Whenever they add a map to the Foundry, they version it off so it doesn't get updates. Assets within the map can get updates because those are linked back to the main game, but the map itself
like when Taco Fangs changed all of the console screens to have prettier colors, he changed the image files used by the consoles and didn't rebuild the consoles.
Yeah.
So all of those automatically was propagated everywhere in the game.
Exactly.
I think it's going to be pretty funny for anyone walking around Deep Space Nine right now, because we're all just sort of standing at the door, just looking into it. I'm going inside.
Let's go to Quarks.
Oh yeah. That's kind of a natural place.
Man, this is such an awesome map.
Our favorite places in the game to visit.
Yeah.
It is now. Old DS9, maybe not so much.
So let's go with what have been your favorite things to build in the Foundry? Like a single, let's go single map, costume, or set of triggers. Specifically.
On the show or off?
Oh, just I just say in general, because
in general, anything you've built.
Anything you've built in the Foundry.
I can get us started. My favorite thing that I've ever done with triggers is I tried to destroy a planet and it didn't work. Basically, I maxed out the asset limit on a space map with explosions. That tells you something. That's 400 some odd explosions. They don't all go at once, so they go in sequence, and trying to get them in 3D to basically cover up a whole planet. It did not really work, but it was still kind of cool. There's just a million explosions going off. It was kind of cool.
You mostly killed it.
I mostly killed it. So that was one of my favorite things that did not work. I'll think of something favorite that did work in a second.
One thing that I've done that I really, really loved the end results of, so that's something that I can really say that I've done often, was layering the space backdrops to create visual effects that look distinctly different from any of the default space backdrops, when all you're really doing is just stacking them on top of each other in the carefully selected order. I mean, it's one of those things where it's harder than it sounds, simply because of the fact that you have to take into account which ones are more transparent than each other, and you have to put them in the right order. Otherwise, you'll put the opaque one on top, and then no one will be able to see the less opaque ones that are underneath it, and so on and so forth. And it's challenging to get right, and I guess that's a large part of why I like the way it came out when I did it.
So I would have to, my favorite map build so far is probably my refugee city I built for part 3, which I've shown a few pictures.
Oh yeah, that one.
Which we showed off a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Just working it, because speaking of trying to build with when the map editor isn't working ideally, none of those buildings are visible in the Foundry editor. They're all just
the colony buildings, yeah.
The colony building bug has been around for I don't know how long and is severely annoying.
Long time.
But it's the majority building made up of that entire city, and it was just a lot of patience and trial and error, and finally.
I mean, the city that I built in Diplomacy in the Gamma Quadrant is built out of those colony building things. I eventually figured out that the building is not completely invisible. It is actually, you can see the tarp things that are hanging over the windows, and you can use that to approximate the location of the building. And that's what I use as a visual reference when placing the buildings on that map. Oh, boy, that was a pain.
Duncan, what about
technical, I'd say the door puzzle is my favorite.
Okay, so for technical build, the last map in Apex came together really nicely. But I would just have to say, I was just thinking about this. I was going to go with Apex, but I think my top one is going to be the optional dialogue, just the optional dialogue by itself in Trident Part 1. That one, I still like. That's still my just from a writing point of view, I still don't know what I was I mean, that was just sort of I think my highlight of just how I was able to approach that one. So I would just say the writing on the optional dialogue in Trident Part 1. Still trying to match.
Dragoon, I think my favorite build of yours, which Kael alluded to earlier, is your crashed starship. You know, it wasn't something really overly complicated, but it just worked so well that it just looked like the saucer section of a ship buried in the ground. It was absolutely perfect.
It predates all the ground scale ships that we have now.
It does, yeah.
Oh, man.
I liked it so much, I copied the technique several times in missions that I never actually released.
Oh.
Oh, actually, I just thought of one of my personal favorite moments of something that happened on the dev side of the Foundry that it's one of those things that, after the fact, you're happy that it happened, but it was a bug and not something that the devs actually wanted to do. And that was, of course, getting all of those space station props as ground assets.
Well, those turned out to be quite a boon.
That was funny. Yeah, it was an accidental windfall there. I tell you, probably my favorite build of mine is the first real custom one I ever made, which was my Romulan Senate.
Oh yeah.
How many years ago did I make that thing? Jeez. I built it, in fact, right after the Foundry went live, because I had that mission set built on Tribble, and it was fairly rudimentary, and then I redid it when the Foundry went live because nothing transferred, and that gave me the opportunity to rewrite things and expand things, and that was my first foray into building custom maps, and I where it led to. Jeez.
Yeah, my first custom map build was actually the first big city map in Gemini way back, and that one that's still a favorite one. It's very rudimentary to some of the stuff that's building now. You can, there is a progenitor of my AEI building style, because there's one building block where you notice it's just sort of has this tiered structure for this very geometric look, and I ended up building most of my missions like that.
Became your signature.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That and the optional dialogue. But no, that was sort of another sort of foundational moment where I really started realizing what you could do with a Foundry. And that mission became quite a lot more. And all I was basically doing there is I played Purity, and I do want to at least try to meet some kind of par with that. So I just kept putting one thing on top of another thing until the editor told me I had to stop.
I honestly became a lot better at doing Foundry stuff by talking to people on the forums and stuff about it, because of the fact that, in one of my Foundry missions that was actually technically it was my second Foundry mission I ever made. I was really proud of myself for figuring out how to have a prop get replaced by a destroyed version of the same prop when you interact with it. And it was one of those things like, hey, I figured out how to do something, and it worked right most of the time.
I remember kind of figuring out that same thing, and noticing that we had intact versions and destroyed versions of some of the buildings, like the Fed buildings. And I was like, what can I do with this? Oh, I could do like an orbital bombardment right in front of the player. And so I did.
Well, the specific example I'm thinking of is you walk up to this Borg device, you interact with it to sabotage it, then it explodes, and I actually set it to trigger an explosion effect when this happens, and then it's replaced by a broken version of itself.
I was kind of feeling the Foundry that we're all kind of magicians, that there's engaged in this sleight of hand to try and convince people that we can make things appear to happen that aren't really happening. There's some elaborate trick to it.
So let's see. We've got some folks talking in the chat room here. Let's see. Pax said his favorite thing that he did was his Ryza in Flames map from Trouble in Paradise. I remember seeing like the first screenshots of that, and it was like totally epic. And he's his casino map in Mirrorball. That was a very good one. I believe we showed that one off on the show.
Yeah.
Starfarer Theta says his favorite build is a toss-up between the virtual map and Cyber. I remember that. That was a good one.
That was a really good map.
Yeah. And the ground map for Transcendence Part 3, I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's the series that we're putting together. Sutherland was going to be doing a Part 1 to that, but I'm probably going to be taking that up. So that was one of my big plans for once the Foundry got back online. I'd actually pair that, like his Episode 2 and 3 with a Part 1 and 4. And that's going to be a really good one. We just haven't gotten that one. But he's actually released Parts 2 and 3 just to get started. So we don't have the intro to that one yet. But you can basically play it like the 26th Century Anthology. But, I mean, some of those maps, oh my god. I mean, those are some of my favorite maps in the Foundry right now, is what Starfire Theta did for that series in particular. They are absolutely amazing builds. And definitely for anyone, like, listening, go check out those Transcendents. I mean, we're still going to, it's still a series in progress, but you can play Parts 2 and 3 right now. Play it, at least for the maps. Those are fantastic. Oh, no! Oh no, he took them down, but he can't republish them right now because republishing isn't working. But yes,
for those of us who have joined us late, I discovered yesterday and today that publishing is not working.
Yeah, and it could just be because of pre-patching. So we're gonna just keep an eye on it, and then we'll panic on. Tuesday.
I have it in my head that maybe that has caused issues before.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So I think that, like, I was thinking, like, yeah, I think we may have heard that before.
It's not the first time we've had Foundry Publishing suddenly just stop working for reasons that were unclear.
Yes. So yeah, we'll just keep an eye on it. But yeah, Starfire Theta, just while I'm on the mic, yeah, I'm definitely going to be making Parts 1 and 4. That's basically what I'm going to be doing after Epoch Part 2. Because that's my first commitment. I do want to actually finish the AI series, and then Transcendence 1 and 2 or 1 and 4 are going to be my next ones. I've got some good maps for those.
Sir Boulevard said his favorite thing that he's done in Foundry was fire-breathing epos.
Yes. Oh my god.
and then he says, "My epos ain't your mission." That's the real reason.
So the fire-breathing epos were hilarious, and a great example of one of those things where someone did something that devs didn't anticipate, and thus the results looked weird because there was something missing on the back end. Yeah. Namely the fact that epos don't have dead animation, so when you kill one of them, it just stands there staring at you.
Can't truly kill an epo.
They are immortal.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, Johnny Snowball stuff, and we haven't given him a proper shout out. But yeah, I mean,
lots of great ones there.
Everything's Johnny Snowball's built. Just all of it.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Snowball, Captain P.F. Dennis, Alan Mack, Bazak, all these great authors that we've had over the years, who have come and gone, and some who are still around, of course. You know.
Ali Mac 30, and I did double check. Main's Balnar Moon did make it through republishing.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's still in the game, and I I did mention to Kael, maybe you want to re-spotlight that one.
I think he might have to resubmit it in order to get it respotted.
He might, but Kael was asking if authors haven't submitted it, so I'm thinking maybe there's a backdoor. We'll see.
Oh, maybe.
But anyway though, there's so many great authors. Let's see, Admiral Aaron for his wonderfully crazy stuff throughout his missions. Sutherland, everyone in Starbase UGC, Baz, Zorbane,
Pinto Bean,
Sir Bolivar for his incredible cultural studies.
Yes.
Clinto Bean's stories are always weird out there things because he kind of sort of makes up his own story arc that doesn't really match with the Stowe story arc, but his map building skills are impressive.
Of course, we got to give a shout out to Old Lord Skull, who made the original 3-hour marathon mission. He was the original example of, please do not make your missions that long.
Well, to be honest, part of the reason why I actually had Bavat's Legacy as part 1 of 2, not that I ever finished 2, was that my playtesting of it was that even though it was only 2 maps of stuff, it would take something like 20 or 30 minutes to get through those 2 maps, even though the mission design wasn't particularly complicated.
Yeah. I also want to give out to a couple of relatively recent authors. Definitely Spiritborn, who's done a lot to really engage with the community recently.
Plus, along with Pax, he's been basically our #1 fan.
That's hugely appreciated. Also want to give out shout outs to Zeb Goodwin and SD Captain Quirky for their recent work. Also DXG Prime for his missions on AEI as well. And
plus, everybody who participated in our recent challenge. Thanks to everyone for doing that. We had a great response.
Also, just
lots
2060,
of missions.
Infinity Challenge as well, AEI. Those have all been incredible.
I'm really very happy with how things have gone over the last 6 years. I mean, my mission statement basically when I started this podcast is, it's like I want us to be positive about the Foundry.
Show people how to make the Foundry awesome.
Yeah, and that's not always been easy. but I can honestly say mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I say, wasn't there some drama going on our first episode? And we specifically said, look, let's not talk about it.
Let's not talk about that. I can tell you exactly what it was. It was they had removed fleet marks as a reward from the Foundry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that one.
They called it, the people were calling it the Valentine's Day Massacre.
To be honest.
Really? Yes, really.
I was just okay. That's my response.
And,
I know why they did it, and it's one of those stupid things where you're like, people, this was an exploit. Why are you trying to claim it wasn't?
Exactly.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Exactly.
The three of us and Hippie John have been talking about starting this for, I don't know, about a month or something like that, and then this all just blew up on the forums, and we were like, well, we were going to launch. Let's just go ahead and do it anyway, and let's not talk about that part of it. And I think that was a good decision, honestly.
I think the community has finally moved past it.
I think we finally...
because almost no one else is still around who remembers it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, would not be the last controversy, and it's always about Foundry rewards too. I swear.
Yeah, I mean,
to be honest, part of the reason why there's so many controversies about Foundry rewards is the simple fact that there's a large chunk of the community who plays Foundry missions for no other reason.
And I think they play the game for no other reason.
Well, yeah, true. It's that's the people who complain about how it grinding to get 8,000 dilithium on every single character takes so much time. I mean, seriously, why?
SB,
like,
you and me
you
both.
can always choose not to.
But one last shout out I do want to also give is to those Foundry authors who are doing the RP maps, because that's been a really big thing over the last few years. Like Abby B recently, we highlighted her work, and that was absolutely incredible. So definitely, big shout out to those people too, because that's also another really big part of the Foundry that I think maps like the Invictus Social Zone sort of highlight what you can really do with those, both from the technical point of view, but also just like that can just be it. I mean, you can just make a space, and
you don't always have to make a story mission. You just there have been all throughout the time we've had the Foundry, there have been authors who just like to build maps. They don't particularly want to build a story or don't feel like they're good at it, but they are fantastic map builders. One of the originals was called Saber Druid. He never made a whole lot of proper missions, but he loved to make maps, and he made this brilliant Klingon courtroom map that looked just exactly like the one from Star Trek VI. It was a thing of beauty.
There is one thing I can think of from the deep, dark past of the Foundry that was actually a good thing that I don't think we can currently do. And that is 100% story-based missions where you write a story and you don't build maps.
You can kind of fake it.
I mean, just
the fact
earlier,
you can just spawn the player in a dark room and just have everything proceed from there.
In the old days, you could actually write a mission so that a player never left the cryptic social zone maps.
Can you not do that now?
Yeah. I think what it was is that I think it was one of those things that they changed because of bug exploits or something like that. Because it was something I think they got changed a long time ago. Is that it couldn't finish the mission in a social zone.
So you need at least one map that's actually a self-contained Foundry mission.
It was one of those things that back when they first, added like proper rewards to Foundry missions, because, way back in the day, you would play it for basically the fun of it.
Mm-hmm. So I guess people were probably just like, just going up to a console, pressing it once, and then just boom, you're done.
Yeah, that was exactly what some of the exploits were.
So I in that vein of the changes that the Foundry has gone, that the storyboard change, it didn't used to be like that where you could click and drag from the right and you have your cryptic map. Things were it was structured a little bit differently. I can hardly remember how it was the previous way. But I'll tell you one of the things that I'm remembering right now is that on the 2D map, it wasn't originally, you didn't have originally pictures of each asset when you placed it down. It was wireframes.
I remember that. It was in some ways easier to work with, in some ways harder to work with, because one, you could see the outlines of all of the objects, but selecting a specific object was an absolute nightmare. And two, since it was only a wireframe, things would sometimes get jumbled and you would be utterly baffled as to what you were looking at.
Yeah, I mean, with some of the maps that we like to build, I mean, you would just have wires going every which way and overlapping each other, and yeah. It would not have been good to leave it like that.
Because I remember this because I actually built some of my missions using that, and one thing that I specifically remember is that it made placing those giant fungus things on the Vorn ground map a lot easier, simply because of the fact that when I was placing the object, I see a wireframe of the outline of the giant fungus, and I could actually see the path that I was placing the fungus next to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where you can't really have it both ways. And it's mostly better the way it is now.
Unless they had built it where you could switch between the two views.
Or maybe set it so that it would use the wireframe when you're dragging objects, and only when you're dragging objects, perhaps.
That was still downsides.
I'll tell you the other big change that I remember is it did not originally have triggers.
No triggers, no branching.
Yeah, no branching dialogue.
Ooh, what could I have done then? I'd be lost.
You would have to make a million different linear conversations.
It did actually for optional dialogue that actually wouldn't be a problem. It would just be there's no escape from this early. You must sit through this to the end.
It did sort of in the old days have something akin to triggers, but this was always story focused things. It's like you complete an objective and now certain things on the map are now different. It wasn't like side things. It was main things.
You know, there was no map dialogue to start with. So you could only do what was in the storyboard. I remember, you know, obviously some missions I've built I can point to that, you know, would just be completely impossible without that kind of stuff, triggers and map dialogue and branching dialogue, things like that. So it came a long way, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, one thing I remember that was, I'm not going to say it was a good thing per se, but looking at the first 3 missions I built and then going back at them years after I built them originally and tinkering with them to make them something that wasn't horrible. My first one is a mission that probably none of the people listening have played because of the fact that it is lame and boring. And really all it is an excuse to make the player run around and do platforming stuff in the Star Trek Online Foundry because I like going around and running and jumping on top of things. And this mission, as it was built, the main thing on the mission you had to do is you had to like walk around in this, like, I picked one of those like stone mushroom forest maps, and I'm like, okay, so let's see here. If I add a little bit of rock here, add another stone mushroom over here, and so on and so forth. The mission is currently unpublished because of the fact that one of the season updates, I don't remember which one, changed the layout of the stone mushrooms in the base map to something that makes it so that all of my platforming stuff doesn't work anymore.
Okay, so here's a question. What is your favorite unpublished project that you have?
Oh God, there's so much.
I mean, Dragoon's answer is obvious.
The favorite project that I've started but never finished would be something that's like completely out of universe thing. I started tinkering with a long time ago but never got done with, and that would be attempting to recreate some ruined castle from one of the Dragon Quest games in the Foundry, with the express purpose of making the ruined version of the castle and a non-ruined version of the castle, so that you could like see it as like a nice shiny new building. Because in the game where you see it, I think it was Dragon Quest 9. You never get to see the castle in a pristine state. You see it after monsters have, basically trashed the place.
Duncan, how about you? Your favorite unpublished project?
I was thinking about that. I mean, it's a really tough call right now between oh man, there's three things I'm really excited to try to get finished. One is going to be, but I have to pick one. Let's see. I'm going to say the last episode of what maybe like Starfleet Security, the next episode of that might be a really fun project because I'm going to be taking that in a slightly different direction. That might be a really fun one. I've started some work on that one, but that might be my favorite. But it's really close between that Transcendence part 4 and Epoch Part 2. Those are all really fun projects.
Do you want to hear a project that isn't Part 3?
Yes, we do.
I started building a entry for the Mirror Romulus contest. And
ooh,
really?
There actually had a version of old Romulus, capital city, as well as some underground stuff that was going to be how you got there. And you basically would find an Iconian gateway that would take you over to the Mirror Romulus as I built up this city and whatnot.
That was the challenge for which I built that map that I maxed out on explosions that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it became pretty obvious really quick that I was never going to be able to finish it in time. So that one will probably never see come to light. But it did get
especially now that Kael has given you a direct order to finish Part 3.
Yes. It has been commanded.
Which I
was just thinking back and realized that over the years I've had 3 times when a change to the game coding has ruined one of my missions. 2 of which are currently in an unpublished state because one of them I didn't really care enough to bother fixing it, and the other one is just so horribly messed up that it's going to take a lot of work to fix it, and I still haven't done that work.
I remember having to completely redo a map because they changed, when we used to build in the black space around geometry. They shrunk it on me, and I had to completely rebuild a map.
Well, that's one of mine, is because the Beta Rana incident map I built, I made a sky castle in the black space, and it was a very large sky castle apparently, and that is part of the problem, is figuring out how to relocate it and reconstruct it in another map that it'll actually fit in.
I got very lucky because Part 2's got that one map built in the black space.
I've got one map built in black space, but I actually know I've got a few. Oh crap! One of them's spotlighted. But it's the cave interior like O2, the one that has for some reason a gigantic map area. But hopefully they'll never change that. Hopefully.
Well, it's unlikely at this point.
The first one I actually noticed an issue with was not the Beta Rana incident, though. It was Diplomacy in the Gamma Quadrant, where, like with the one where the stone mushrooms change places, this one, it was a mountain. I built part of the map around a mountain that was part of the baked-in geometry, and somehow one of the game updates relocated the mountain.
Oh.
Wow,
I was
really
able to fix that one though. Because it didn't like completely change the location, and so all I had to do was like rearrange the structure a little bit, and it would work again. It's just one of those things where you're like, why? What happened?
Code happened.
Yep.
The one thing I just wanted to throw in here too is that the one little special shout out we need to is also to thank Zero for all she did for the Foundry for tenure.
Yes.
Well, and of course the original devs who built it, of course, because without them,
And of course, Brand Flakes, because without Brand Flakes and Zero, the Foundry would not be anywhere even close to what it is. Yes. Oh, and of course, our forum overlord, Taco Fangs, because let's face it, he's the guy who actually built most of the assets in the old Foundry database.
Definitely a lot of it. And got us a few maps over the years. I mean, ESD revised, we wouldn't have that without Taco doing that for us.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you,
definitely trying.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you my favorite of my many unpublished missions. Is I had this 2-parter where it was going to be a Borg mission, and it was going to be there's going to be a massive Borg attack going on, and then out of desperation, you and your crew, of course, go off on your own because that's what we do, and you were going to go to the absolute center of Borg space where the Borg originated, and you were going to come across the first Borg. I was going to call him the Source or something like that, and he was going to be basically in the middle of this giant complex, and your crew was going to have to be fighting off Borg while you go and talk to this guy because you had this plan to, infect him with Janeway's whatever she used in Endgame.
and then you find out afterwards that he had spent a decade making himself immune to it and coming up with ways to make you wish you'd never heard of it.
I'd make that an ethical quandary. You just go there, and it's actually just a normal guy in a sweater. And it's just he's a really nice guy, and he just started arriving at the point. It's like, I can't really do it, can I?
Another interesting thing
go ahead.
Is that Star Trek canon has never established why the Borg were created, and it's sometimes hinted in secondary media that the purpose of the Borg, and in fact the reason why they say they have the whole quest for perfection thing, is the fact that they were not originally hostile.
Yeah, I think it's...
My thought process was, I'll explain this here, is basically when you go to meet this guy, he tells you his origin. He's basically, the first guy from an alien race who decided to start modifying himself, and it just grew and grew from there. And basically he has been held captive by all the other Borg for millennia in this facility. Because they think if they die, he dies.
Well, part of the reason why that theory that I mentioned earlier got tossed around is the fact that here's a question for you quick. What is the species number of the Borg Queen species?
I don't know.
It's not number one. That's for sure. And that's the thing, is that's 200 or something like that. And
yeah, it's a three-digit
wait
number.
A second. Why is the Borg Queen species something that presumably the Borg hadn't encountered at the beginning, and was something that they found later after they'd already started expanding?
It could be that they only arrived at the need of a queen once they reached a sufficient level of complexity in the collective. So basically they're just expanding outward, and then they get to a point, it's like, well, we're having some difficulty, so we need a central control nexus. So then the queen was basically created.
I always figure that the queen is the collective, and she's just a physical manifestation of it. So whenever they happen to need one, they just build one out of whatever's on hand.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
actually, you could do the Queen Bee thing, where basically a worker is designated from the hive, and then just metabolism shifts and becomes the queen. So it is just an arbitrary drone that is designated to become the queen.
Assuming direct control.
Part of this theory, though, was that the nature of the Borg changed at some point, and it's just like one of those, it was like a cultural shift inside the Borg that made them shift from being somewhat benign to aggressive. And it actually got alluded to in Voyager that at one point in the past, the Borg were not, trying to take over the entire galaxy.
I think
super cuddly.
I think I just posted in chat. If I wrote it, I know exactly which direction I'd go. I'd make it a comedy. And it would be a civilization trying to basically okay, we want technology not to turn on us. We want it to just, be completely innocuous and safe and be friendly. So we're going to give it the directive, give hugs for everyone. And it went very, very wrong and created the Borg. That is my Borg origin story. Just a very well-intentioned species tries to give an order that can't possibly go wrong, and it creates the Borg. This is the perfect allegory for technology.
Well, see, along those lines, though, is that Star Trek has often done like cautionary tales of what happens if you try to rely on technology and screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just doing the Borg origin story as a comedy, that'd be the way I go. That's just too appealing.
That would be pretty funny. Oh, okay, so here's another one. Okay, so what have you ever had an idea for a Foundry mission that has never gone past the idea stage?
Power Rangers. Oh, dang it. I can't say it anymore because I did actually start prototyping a little bit. Power Rangers parody as a Foundry mission. Just complete. As the SSF team, it is a Power Rangers parody. We tossed some ideas around. So it did get beyond the idea stage because I built a map and costumes for it.
Mine is like, do something with the whale probe.
Ooh, I did have one. Or no, dang it. I did concept that one too. Dang it. I usually concept my ideas.
So, if I ever finish part 3, what I want to do after that is the story of where you find out the player character is an Undine spy.
Oh yeah, that one.
I really think that one's got a lot of potential.
Oh well, and of course, Memory Alpha.
Okay, so there is actually legit like
and I've never built it.
There's one that there's a proper idea that I haven't built, haven't prototyped, haven't put in the Foundry at all. Basically a SSF series where you have to bust Jigoro out of Ropente. Or you basically go to make sure that she is very secure. Yeah,
or when you get there, she assumes you're breaking her out.
That should be
and then follows you.
That should be I think that should be the final Jigoro mission, where you go to make sure that there's absolutely no chance she could ever escape again.
She's better now. I did go, like, part of my rewrite on season 2 was to really sort of ease out that character arc in particular.
Also, I'll tell you the other idea that I had that never really got past the idea phase because of limitations in the Foundry, is actually something similar to something that PAX has worked on and never released, which is something about ancient Klingons. Ancient Klingon myths, like the time of Kael and things like that. But you can't really do it because there aren't melee-only mobs in the Foundry. Not ones that look good anyway.
True.
You can reskin Targs, but the animations don't work great.
One thing that I have on not very many occasions, let's put it that way. One thing I thought about a few times was making the whole Beta Rana thing into an actual series, because if you actually look at the way that the mission is phrased and set up, it kind of has rather long-lasting implications because of the fact that you have what's essentially a military outpost built by a race that's technically friendly to the Federation, but it's built inside Federation space and not in their space. I'm trying to remember what the name of the race I used for that was. It's not one of the ones that's actually a major part of the Federation story. It was a minor race you saw in TNG and DS9. Bosliks. Anyway, the thing is that it gets funded by the Tholians. The Tholians pay the Bosliks to build it inside Federation space, and it's one of those things where you look at it, it's like, diplomatic implications of that going down the road. That would be interesting.
Let's see. Starfare Theta says he had a concept that he'd like to pursue a multi-part series involving a star system that is changing as the story evolves. It starts out as a normal star system and becomes something entirely else by the end.
Ooh.
That would be interesting.
I want it.
Yeah.
I want it.
I just thought of something. One of my missions, I never actually finished the mission because I never figured out what I wanted the mission to be. Namely, TAS Redux. Mission I spent a lot of time working on, and I stopped working on it because I realized that I hadn't figured out exactly what I wanted the mission to do.
Oh, for the Victory is Life challenge, my entry into that one, just on the side, before I decided to take my mission concept and fold it into the Transcendent series to finish that one off. The idea I had for that was that the player character would be revived after, what was it? It was like 23,000 years by someone who might be associated with the Federation, and basically had to participate in a series of events that would bring about the final fall of the Dominion, but doing so in a way that required the player character to sacrifice himself. And under the ambiguity of, you don't know if you are in fact a simulation of the player rather than your original self, because there would be other characters who are actual simulations, artificial life forms. So it would have gone into a lot of kind of questioning what the player is actually trying to do and what their overall objective is, and then basically sort of providing an ultimate statement of that through them dying at the end of the mission. Because I have that freedom.
That should be like the last mission ever made for this game.
I might have to bring that one back.
It just leaves you asking, wait, was my player character real? Or were they just a simulation?
Oh man, I have also considered the fact that they're when I'm doing my future series, future 4.5 million year missions for AEI, I will actually answer what happens to the player in Epoch Part 2 in some way. I can't say if it's going to be main dialogue or optional dialogue, something a little on the side that maybe throw in a little bit of reference somewhere. Maybe have a little fun with that, but we'll see about that one.
Yeah, so see, the main thing I couldn't figure out for TAS Redux is you're tracking a missing Federation ship. You figure out that it disappeared into a rift that goes into a pocket dimension. You find the rift into the pocket dimension. You find the location where it's at, and the reason why this whole thing is a TAS reference is because in TAS, Kirk did something vaguely similar to that by going to the Delta Triangle and finding this pocket dimension called Elysia. Well, you find out that this isn't actually Elysia. It's a different pocket dimension that has also accumulated a whole bunch of derelict ships, but I never did figure out exactly what I wanted the society of the people in this pocket dimension to be like, although I did figure out that I wanted them to be infected with Borg nanoprobes that were not attempting to assimilate them into the collective because of the fact that the nanoprobes were unable to establish a link to the collective due to being outside normal spacetime.
That sounds very complicated.
And part of the reason why I never finished it is because I'm like, wait, what am I doing now?
Every so often when I'm doing a mission, I ran into that spot of wait a minute, where am I going with this?
Oh my God.
Where does this actually lead? I have this cool idea and this couple of set pieces here and some scenes in my head, and how does this actually end?
The worst place to get to that is actually when you're doing the final map build for, say, Epoch Part 2, and you realize, I don't really know how this ends. It just feels trite, and I can't. I'm so close, but tear it all apart, start over again.
That's actually kind of sort of part of the reason why I never finished Bavat's Legacy Part 2, is I actually did get started in building the maps for it and building customs for it. One, though, I didn't figure out exactly how I wanted the augments to act. Although I kind of sort of had the idea of this using a kind of enemy mob where they would often use melee attacks and had a habit of mixing melee attacks with ranged attacks. But the real thing is that I just couldn't quite finish exactly figuring out the specifics of how I wanted this story to flow through the mission. I had an idea as to what I wanted the story to be. Is that In part 1, you find this device which can create a explosive shockwave that will destroy something in the past and cause a ripple effect that will, it won't remove it from time the way the time ship did, but it will break it at a different point in time than the one where you activate the device. Anyway, though, that part I had the idea for is that the flow of it is you sneak into the base, you fight your way through an army of augments that were created by the bad guy to take over the universe. You plant the device on the... See, because part of the reason why you have to sneak into the base is because the guy has created an experimental device which basically acts as a time shield so that you can't time travel into that area of space. Which is the whole point behind having a device that can break something in the past is you get to the device, you plant the grenade on it, and then when you set off the anti-chronoton grenade, it will destroy the device several years before you planted the grenade on it. Then you have this little temporal flip over, and then you go back in time even further to when the guy was planning to activate the device in the first place, and then destroy the device gets destroyed by your grenade thingy and in front of him, and he's like, what the heck just happened? And then you show up and have a fight with him. And then the mission ends with the temporal cops sending everyone back home to their proper timeline, and the events of the thing never happened, basically.
The old reset button, sort of.
Well, that's just it, though, is that the mission here is for you, the player, to fix the temporal anomaly, and thus you're kind of sort of acting as the reset button. The problem with the mission...
I like that you are the reset button.
The problem with the mission, though, is that I couldn't figure out how to get from the infiltrate the base part to the, cool part.
I had that problem in the mission that I just built that sadly can't be published. I was like, okay, so I have this big surprising thing that happens in the middle of the mission, and I know what the last scene of the mission needs to be, but how do they actually get there between those two? I only had about half a day to figure it out, so because I was trying very, very quickly to build this thing.
Yeah, the chat's been talking about a particular plot point in one of the Section 38 or Section 31 books, and yeah, we got to get that book for
we don't talk about Section 38.
Or yeah, Section 38. No, that's my division, and they're trying. They're really trying. I mean, they're working at it, and they're trying really hard, and someday they'll get something to actually happen.
A for effort.
I've already moved on to Section 47.
They've got a really nice badge. I mean, they put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, it's very snazzy.
But yeah, basically, one of Enigma, one of the major contracts from a series, might be part of that in some way. So yeah.
Pax was talking about what his acronym Eclipse stands for, because Eclipse is designed to be kind of sort of a takeoff of Spectre from the James Bond movies. Yep.
This is why it's always in all caps.
Mm-hmm.
With periods.
I still haven't actually. Let's see it. Like
I can tell you that is really annoying to try and type when you do something like that. Like when I made Brunhilde for the what do you call it? What is that name of the mission? Sink the Bismarck. The acronym was just too funny not to use, but
whenever I type out the name MODOK, I always feel the need to put it in all caps with periods, even though half the time when you see people using it in comic books, they don't. It's technically supposed to be done that way.
Well, gentlemen, obviously it's been a great 6 years. We could get all maudlin, but we're not actually ending things. We're just making room to do different things, and slowing down just a little in our old age, since we've all been at this for a long time.
And I remember back in the day where we could actually make costumes.
Way back when.
I just had something weird happen to me. See, because I got an accolade for getting 20 Dabos, and then all of a sudden, some Romulan lady sends me a hail telling me I need to go do something to annoy the Vaadwaur.
Why? And see, it wouldn't be a Foundry Roundtable episode without a Markhawkman tangent.
It's just one of those things is that it has to do with the way the journal changes they made, and the way mission auto hails are working is just weird right now, because I've been logged in for an hour on this character, and then all of a sudden out of the blue the game sends me a hail giving me a mission.
Well, I suppose we'll be announcing things when we do them, live plays and builds and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody should keep an eye on our Twitter feed. Keep an eye out for that.
And of course the forums, because that's what they're there for.
Yeah, and I'll
definitely.
I'll definitely still be checking in there with major news, collaboration stuff, and other things. And definitely want to give a shout out to Pax's current collaboration effort for characters for his Zero and Johnny Snowball wedding mission. So
I need to get in one on that.
Yeah. So characters, and also I've got another collaboration effort currently ongoing. I just remembered. I was gonna actually make a tutorial mission for the Foundry. I just remembered once we get Lieutenant Tardigrade as a Foundry asset. So
So we will be around. Obviously, we're not withdrawing from the community or the game. We're all still heavily big players of the game. So we will see everyone around. That's for sure. But I think for now, we will go ahead and end this 200th episode. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we will say good night.
Good night.
Good night.